Hello there, good evening. Welcome back to Celtic World Order. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt. It's a warm welcome to you back here at the channel. And tonight, I'm joined for a wee catch-up with my right-hand man, my partner in crime, my bearded brother. It's Paddy boy. Paddy, how you doing, mate, since the last time you're on? And that wee collection behind you looks to be growing. I like that.
As it's getting there. Fantastic, mate. Had a cracking day today, and I have another wee picture that's going on in my collection, so I might as well just show it off. This wee one here, signed by the legend that is Murdo McLeod. I spent this morning with Murdo and his wife sitting having coffee. I won't disclose the location, but that's the joys of a podcasting personality, shall we say. So listen, absolutely fantastic.
Listen to you. It's been a fucking brass neck. That's what it is. It's for befriending folk maybe against their will. That's what it is.
Yeah, as Machiavelli said when I got him on with it, he says, Paddy didn't give me a choice. He told me I was coming on a podcast. Aye. These people are just absolute legends of the game, and I'm privileged to spend some time in their company. Do you know what, mate? That for me today was absolutely fantastic. Then I had a lovely day with the wife down at Auckland and stuff as well. So, aye, fantastic. Couldn't ask for anything better.
Look at you, mate. You're enjoying Loch Lomond, a life of leisure. I love that. Whilst I'm working. Fuck you. You went back to reality on Friday. Anyway, sorry, we digress. We're talking nonsense. Welcome back to the channel. As we say, as always, if you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much. The numbers have took a nice wee spike. Thank you very much. Everybody's jumped on there. We are within touching distance of that 1,700. And of course, as we said, the big goal we're aiming for is before the new season. We want to try and hit the 2,000 mark. So help us do that. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing at all to subscribe to the channel. Like it, give it a wee thumbs up, share it, get your friends, family, whoever. If they like Celtic, direct them over to Celtic World Order, and we greatly appreciate that. If you want to help out the channel, you can. It's a donation, $1.99 member section. Just helps put all this back together. We greatly appreciate that as well. And of course, multiple ways to get us: Spotify, TikTok, Paddy, the TikTok man, that's booming as well. We're on Blue Sky, and the main one, X at CW Pod 1888. So thanks for the continued support, and hopefully we can grow the channel throughout this summer and into the new season. So as I say, Paddy, just a wee bit of a catch up, and as the tagline there says, quantity with quality is essential this summer. I've been popping up, a few of our guys, been discussing these many links that have been sort of snowballing over the last sort of week or two. Obviously, last week we saw there was a plethora of guys that had been linked, a lot of wingers. We saw recently young Osmond, Welsh boy, all but imminent. Yeah. Even Ferguson popped up again, Uraseta and Gulu, you name it, it's all there. And the question is, after the latest one that we get linked with, which was the young Japanese defender, Hayato Amura, there's a lot of quantity getting thrown out there. Now, that's no guarantee they're all going to happen, but do these guys have the quality that's going to take us to the next level? So, Paddy, what have you thought in general, all the names that are getting floating about, and where do you think we're at?
Listen, it's nice to see us being linked with people. For a start, obviously, if the scouting system is doing its job, then we are going to be getting a few names thrown out there. A few of them for me keep appearing though. You'd say they're obviously guys like Barakisha and stuff like that. That's a name that's popped up several times, and for me, he's a decent one. He's somebody that is going to bring a bit of quality for what we've seen. Obviously, he was out through injury some parts of last season and stuff, but he's somebody that's going to add a wee bit of quality. Other names that are thrown in there, you watch the YouTube clips, and like we always say on here, anybody can look good on YouTube, but even with some of them, I haven't really been that impressed for what I've seen via YouTube and via other websites and stuff. So yeah, quality over quantity for me is the main thing. I don't want to be bringing in 10 players when 7 of them are not fit for purpose.
Yeah,
I'd rather bring in 3 absolutely fantastic players and fill in the positions that were needed. We've already highlighted them. Nice to see Kieran in the door as well. Yes. A fantastic addition to the squad. So, yeah.
See, kick off in that, just to sort of, chew through what we've already got. Are we underselling, or some of the fans? Because I'm quite surprised at some of the reaction to some of the players that are getting linked to us and stuff. I like the fact that it appears that we are being sort of proactive. We're starting off early. We're trying to get guys in the door. were making approaches. A lot of these are coming from decent, reputable sort of sources. You've got your Anthony Joseph, you've got your Sky Sports, and even the ones that are abroad, coming from main outlets. You know what I mean? They're multiple million or hundreds of thousands of followers, so legitimate bona fide. It's not wee Jimmy down the pub telling somebody that they've heard this. That's always reassuring. But the thing as well is, I'm quite surprised at some of the reaction. Some of the people saying, "Oh, half these guys are no up to it," and things like that. But also, I feel to an extent that we've kind of maybe taken a wee bit for granted the reintroduction of Kieran Tierney into the team. Now, I sat here and I went over his game history over his time at Arsenal, and what was interesting is when you hit him and Taylor side by side, there are a couple of months between them, and if you include international games, well, Tierney's played more football than Taylor, who feels like he's been playing every week in, week out, and apparently Tierney's always injured. I think that's a real statement signing for us to get back. I mean, obviously it helped that the player wanted to come back, but is that one getting underplayed just ever so slightly? We've kind of taken it for granted and not actually realised this isn't Kieran Tierney that's coming back to tick the box and wind down his career. This is a Kieran Tierney that's given you the prime years of his career.
Yeah, I think Celtic fans have had time to get their heads around Kieran Tierney coming back. I think the excitement started when he agreed to come in. If that makes sense. Now we've had, 4 or 5 months of knowing that Kieran's coming back. So when he finally did put up that wee post and he's coming home, I belong to Glasgow, the wee thing. And it was lovely, nice to see. And a nice wee Billy Connolly touch in there as well, which I enjoyed. But to see that, him coming in, for me, was a big thing. I mean, we sold him for 25 million. People forget that. We're getting him in for nothing. Wages, do you know what I mean? We're getting him in for absolutely hee-haw. Yeah. And like you say, Steve, it's not as if we're getting him in at the latter stages of his life. He's hitting the peak time of his career, in my opinion. This is going to be a peak Kieran Tierney that we're getting. Yes, he had a few injuries. Yes, he was pulling up here and there. But like you say, you seen his last game for Arsenal there. Do you know what I mean? He come on and scored a goal. He's left a goal.
Yep. Aye.
Yeah, he's not a poor player, and people are forgetting that. People are, like I say, they've took it for granted because we've known for so long that he's been coming back, and I think that's where the issue has been. For me, it's an absolute incredible signing. For me, it's like signing a £25 million player.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As I said, it was easy. The fact that we knew that he wanted to come back, but listen, you've got to be kidding yourself on if you don't think that he had multiple destinations that you could have went to. You could have stayed 100%. In that Premier League, maybe not within the top sort of 4 or 5, of course, maybe mid-table, but some of the bigger mid-table teams, you'd certainly be able to get a gig, in Europe somewhere, as we've seen, Sociedad and the likes. There would be teams queuing up for him, so I think that that's a good thing for us. Obviously, it helps the Celtic fan. He's obviously went down there, he's made his millions, he's nice and comfortable, and he wants to come back. He maybe wants to finish off his time at Celtic. He wants to do basically a Brendan Rodgers, I suppose, didn't he? Because even though he was a great servant to us and one of our own, as we say, that it's still one of those guys that kind of, when he left, I remember it kind of really divided the fans, where folk were saying, oh, it's all badge pumping and, megaphone blowing, but when the money comes calling, I think that's eased off now. I think folk are actually appreciative of the opportunity that we've been given, because he's been given an opportunity, yes, but he would have had that opportunity 2 years, 3 seasons down the line, whatever it may well be. Let's face it, if Kieran Tierney wanted to come back and do a Roy Keane and finish off, Celtic would have facilitated it. But the fact that he's coming back is major. And that, as I say, is looking at the quantity with quality. He ticks the quality mark right away. It's important for us, Paddy, to supplement that, and I think the back line is undoubtedly somewhere that we need to start, isn't it?
100%, especially the left back position. It's been one that we've highlighted. Doesn't matter who we've put in there, whether it be Burnaby, whether it be Greg Taylor, anyone. Do you know what I mean? We've had several players come in and try and cover that position. Jeffrey Schroep even. I think he found it quite hard as well. He didn't live up to the kind of hype that we expected for him. Kieran Tierney is going to live up to that hype. We know what we're getting with Kieran as well. Scotland International, he'll play for the badge. Do you know what I mean? That badge pumping was real. He knows exactly what it means to play for Celtic, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's been brought in for a future captain, because he's got that in him. He's definitely captain material. The back line, Steve, like you said there, mate, that is your bread and butter. We need to strengthen that back line, because there was too many points this season where we conceded for silly crosses into the box and getting beat down the left-hand side or getting beat down the right-hand side. You see it here and there. I think Kieran's going to solidify that. We just need somebody else in the middle to partner Carter Vickers for me.
I think I want to look at starting at the back line and looking at that left-hand side. Now, obviously, we've talked about there's multiple links, and I'll get your sort of thoughts and flavour on them, what you think's required. But the most recent one that came up, it was the young Japanese defender, Hayato Amura, right? 23 years of age, can play at left centre back, or he can play at left back. So there'll be a wee element of sort of switching over here. Now, this is the question. When I look at some of the names, Nigrin, Uraseta, even the sort of outside ones like Angulo, Tiknaz, Ivan Ferguson, Balakwisha. Now, see, for me, I think they are very much in the mould of what we need. There's international experience there. They're playing at a good level. They've got a good body of sort of senior appearances behind them, so on and so forth. This one is the anomaly so far of what we've seen. I just want to run it by. He's playing at Albrechts Niigata in the J League. Now, this is a team, by the way, this isn't like your Marinos or whatever. They're near enough relegation fodder material, right?
Yeah.
Now, the system, as we know, because this happened with Hatate, where they do like the college-type football, university football. He came out of there, so he's really just fresh out of there and into his current side, where he's played 33 times with 2 assists, discipline-wise, 3 yellow cards, nothing to write home about. Now, very, very extremely small sample size. I believe he's in contract to June 2027, and we're talking, again, a nominal fee, right? Nominal stuff. But this one, for me, Paddy, is a real head-scratcher. It seems really, really similar to the Kobayashi situation. Now, I had a best wee look at him as much as I could with the available data and stats. It says I always like the eye test, right? But there's a limited sample out there that you can go and actually eyeball this guy. You get your classic YouTube videos, but listen, they'd make anybody look good. When I actually pulled these data and I actually want to reference off, there's a few other podcasts. There was Celtics Are Here, Ryan 118. They've done a wee stat pool. I'm not going to give you them, but the key points is that he has many deficiencies. He's very technically sound and for technical ability, ball at his feet, control. As to be fair, was Kobayashi. Anytime we saw him, we thought, good passing of the ball, looks comfortable on the ball. He is composed, yes, and he's a good passing and play builder. Now, his metrics were compared against Liam Scales. That might ring alarm bells to some folk, but it was very, very similar in that Liam Scales mould. And his negatives were very similar to what we've seen for Kobayashi, and in an element what we've seen for Liam Scales. Liam Scales is always good in other people's boxes, not so much in ours, as you've said. Aerial duels, very poor or questionable. Physicality is lacking. We've seen that with Kobayashi, of course. And in terms of tackling, his tackling output is around about 50% challenge win when it's man-to-man. He tends to intercept the play, trying to cut out passes rather than win ball winning. Reading off the game, mate, what is this another project? Because with the situation that we've got, we've spent $4.5 million on Nawrocki, who's going to go back to a team who are sitting 4th in Poland, by the way, on loan. We're getting no money back on that. With Welsh likely to go, and with us having poured $6 million into Trusty, who can't dislodge Scales, where does this guy fit in? I mean, what's going on here, Paddy?
Exactly. He's got to be a project, mate. They've obviously looked at him. I was the same as you. I think Paul put the video into the chat, didn't he? There was 7 minutes of this guy making tackles and trying to win the ball in the air and stuff like that. And to be honest, he didn't really look that impressive, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like you said, a Kobayashi, a very, very similar type player. For me, Nawrocki was the answer. I thought when he came in last year, he was the kind of player that I was looking for in there. He was a guy who was winning aerial battles. He was probably winning 75 to 80% of his tackles. He was decent. Trusty, you've got a mistake in there. Trusty, for me, yes, he's good in the air. He's not as good in the opposition box either. He doesn't really give you an attacking sense, but for me, it's just getting somebody in that's going to help Carter Vickers, and I don't see this guy being the answer. I don't see Liam Scales being the answer either. And if we're going to be losing 3 guys basically in that position, then I don't see Trusty as the answer. So we do need to bring someone in. This guy for me isn't going to be the be all and end all. He's not going to be the guy that we're going to be bringing in.
Yeah, I mean, there's some folk that are saying some things in here. Is Scales the first choice left centre back? Mura, is he a backup? And then folk are obviously saying, is Trusty going to be the cover for CCV? I think the problem we've got here is we have had one real solid mainstay in that defence, which has been Cameron Carter-Vickers. And then even if we're being completely honest, yes, some injuries aside, he hasn't been his glittering best as he was previously. Now, when I look at these guys, and people are asking who scouted this, was we says, maybe the football doctors, this is him coming to the fore and he's putting out some stuff, right? But this one for me just seems really, really strange. Now, when we looked at Keita Kasuki from Djurgården in Sweden, slightly different. Bear in mind, that came from a really reputable source that was reporting that one out. Not that the Amura one hasn't, but there was a slightly better profile in terms of he was playing in arguably a better quality league than his homeland. He's not come straight out of that sort of university system. And again, the interest of big teams in and around them, slightly larger sample size, Conference League experience. That one I can understand. But this one, I really don't know where this scouting's coming from, because let's be totally honest, I think that kind of died off with the tail end of, like Yang coming in, and that was really the last vestiges of that sort of Ange Asia scouting mission. So this one's a right head scratcher, mate.
Yeah, it totally is. When you think back to the recruiting that we've done for the Japanese league, obviously we brought in Daizen Maeda, Kyogo, we brought in Ryo Hatate. Then you get the guys that didn't really work out, like Idaguchi, Tomoki Iwata, like you said, Kobayashi. These are guys that haven't made it. So there's 6 players, and 3 of them have got into the squad. The other 3 haven't. So, yeah, we got 50% shooting rate taking people for that league. So take a guy that's, like you said, playing at the bottom of that league, playing in relegation battles and stuff, and his statistics don't really add up for me. So it's not one that I'm going to get too excited about. What I'm wanting, like you say there, I'm wanting people that are coming for probably the kind of top 5, top 6 leagues in the world, that are playing European football.
You're one with Ian's one, you're wanting Robertson, mate. Aye, give us a bit of that.
He won't get a game. Kieran Tierney will keep him out of the squad.
But I think for me personally, that one I think is pie in the sky. I think it'll be interesting to see where his destination, Robertson, peaks out. He's made it very clear that he's a guy that would want to play at Celtic at some stage.
Yeah,
I think that's a sort of wind down latter years thing. I think he's got a year left in his contract. I don't know, maybe if he went out on loan, you might do a Tierney and snatch him. But I think whilst there's an actual contract there, I don't think you're getting him. Not even on a loan with a percentage wage, but we can wish. But yeah, I think, and some folk are as well saying, Scales will be the number one choice at left centre half. I'm sorry, but no disrespect to Liam Scales. This comes back to, this is an area where we really need. Tierney boosts us, no doubt.
Yes.
There's obviously the length as well, all fallen quiet for the boy for Red Star. That's really kind of died off. But then there's been nothing else. I do think that we also need, and I'm wanting everything and I want it now. We also need a right back, by the way. We need a decent quality right back, but I do think that we need another good quality centre half that can play left sided. And I'm sorry, I don't think that Amura, where he can move between the left centre half or he can play at left back, he just doesn't. He's not the quality that's there, because as you say, I think Narotsky, who's already in situ, is better, but apparently not.
Did you watch soccer? He did take Bonucci. Do you see him halving that young lassie? That was a cracking tackle, man. He's still got a bit of pace about him. I'd take him rather than take MD else we've been linked with so far. Do you know what I mean? He might be getting over the hill a wee bit age-wise, but he still looked like he's got it.
Yeah. And McLaughlin makes a good point here. I think we're maybe forgetting that aspect of it.
Yeah.
We are. And again, maybe that's the thing. I don't want us to be getting away with it. I don't want us to get away with it. We've got somebody better beside them, so that'll instantly show things up. I don't want that. I just think that for me, that one's a right head scratcher. I really can't get my head around that one. And as I say, I think even though he's older than Kasuki by 4 years, he's not had any real sort of proper experience. No. I mean, admittedly, Kazuki's had 1 season, but he's had that Conference League run, which counts for something at least. Do you know what I mean? This guy's fresh out of uni football, playing in his homeland with a team that are not two ways of saying it, they're shite. So I just don't see there's any room for that. But we move on. But another one that are pretty much imminent is Benjamin Nygren, plays in Denmark. He's Swedish, plays in Denmark. There you go, in case you want to check me on that one. I like the look of this signing, Paddy. I think this is opportune. Folk are pooing on this one. I've seen folk pooing on this one saying, it's typical Celtic, it's cheap, and how does it bring us up? And he's slower than Palma, so on and so forth. I think Celtic are looking at players, or Brendan Rodgers is looking at guys that are slightly dynamic. You might say to me, Steve-O, that's what Palma should do, but this guy can also play as a 10 as well as a winger. But compared to Palma, the difference being this guy is actually doing it, and doing it consistently. 4 full Sweden caps, 2 goals, 41 at unders level, 196 appearances, 62 goals, 20 assists in last season, 32 games and 16 goals, 4 assists. That's what Celtic need. Palma wasn't pulling out those numbers when they came to Celtic. Let's not kid ourselves on here.
Exactly. This is one that does excite me a little bit. You look at some of the videos of him as well, and he can strike a dead ball, which is what we're looking for. Because I've said on here before, I don't know, we don't score enough free kicks for me. And I think what people are forgetting is when you do get rid of someone and somebody else is coming in, they're not going to be a direct replacement for that. You're not bringing in this Nygren to replace Palma. He's not going to be a direct replacement for him. He's going to be a player in the squad that's going to give you something different. It was like when we brought in Arnie Engels. Arnie Engels was brought in as a midfielder, yes, but he wasn't brought in to replace and to be directly as good as what Matt O'Reilly was. He was brought in as somebody who was going to better our squad, but not in the way that Matt O'Reilly did. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? Like Matt O'Reilly gave us loads, and then when Engels came in, I was on his back because I was expecting him to be as good as what Matt O'Reilly was. I'm going, wait a minute, this guy isn't giving us as many assists. He's not going forward. He's not scoring as many goals, blah, 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 blah. And it was on the guy's case constant. But then when you break it down and you start looking at him as an individual player to what he does give to the team, it's night and day. And that's what these guys are going to bring in. They've obviously been scouted for a reason. And like I said, Nygren is one of the ones that actually, it excites me. This is a player that I'm looking forward to coming into Celtic.
There's a good point that comes here, and obviously you don't want to be saying that there. Ian's saying, it can be a playmaker. He's marketed as a left winger, and I think he's been playing out there. But as McLaughlin's also saying, and I know that'll give you the fear, this could be Hatate's replacement. Now, if you look at the other guys that we are getting linked with, Uraseta, he is a left winger. He's a straight up left winger. That's no doubt about it. That's where he plays. Balikwisha, another winger again. Left wing also, but the versatility switch around. Even Angulu, the Ecuadorian, he's a left winger as well. There's not a lot coming along that right-hand side, albeit they can switch over. I just think that there's an element of flexibility there that I quite like for that. And certainly he looks like he fits the bill. Shrewd business, a guy that's got 6 months left on his contract, and for whatever reason, Nordsjælland have allowed this to expire. And Celtic are coming in and getting this guy for, I believe, the fees in the region sort of £1.5 million. Now, again, talking about finding quality, we often say that spend a bit more money, get more quality. But sometimes this is where, if it is the case, good scouting, quiet behind the scenes scouting comes into play. Get these guys, snap them up. Even with the likes of Osmond, I mean, what's your thoughts on young Osmond? He's coming for Fulham. He's a predominantly a youth player playing Premier League 2. But again, will he potentially have better, skill set than Johnny Kenny?
Aye, well, exactly. Taking players up for Fulham's worked for us before. You just need to look at Big Dembele. That's kind of where he came from, wasn't it? He was part of their system.
To jump in, I think, as I mentioned, I think the one thing is don't confuse the two. Dembele had an absolute ton worth of first team exposure there. It was just that they were in such a position where he was down the pecking order. However, as I said, the Premier League 2 is the best bright young talents for international all over, brought in by big teams. They're playing against each other. So the competitive level will be there. The only thing you can't replicate is that noise and that pressure. But in terms of football and education, you'll be playing against better players on the reg than Johnny Kenny would have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. Even though Johnny Kenny's got the European experience in there. But yeah, he'll be coming up. The only thing that worries me about players coming for that kind of environment is the weight of a Celtic jersey. Now, obviously, I said earlier on, I was talking to Murdo McLeod today, and me and Murdo were discussing that. We spoke about several players in the Celtic team, and he had mentioned that he says it's hard to have that pressure on you all the time when you're expected to win every single game. Now, these guys haven't been under that kind of pressure, and that's what worries me, somebody coming for those kind of leagues, because at a team like Fulham, he's not expected to win every single week. They'd be expected to win maybe, half their games? Maybe a little bit more than that. I'm maybe being a bit facetious saying half their games there. But yeah, do you get what I mean? It's a high-pressure environment. It's a tough team to come to, and the Celtic jersey does play an awful lot.
You know, I like this comment that Plunge makes, and this is something we've been banging the drum for. Why can't we keep Hatate as well, bring in more quality? And I'm fully for that. Yeah. What I like, though, is if this goes well, and I also see Ian's making a good point as well, if we're getting like with these players, why are we not signing them? Well, he makes a brilliant and very valid point, and I think it's just a sad indictment of where we are. Celtic don't sign players when they're not back. Celtic don't sign players until they're training. They won't buy, for whatever reason, a new guy in and pay them 2-3 weeks, whatever wages it is. As ridiculous as that sound, for the sake of maybe saving 90 grand or whatever it is, depending on the stature of the player and the price tag. And I get it, if you add that up over 3 or 4 players, you could save £500,000 or something. And I get it, but it just seems a bit, extremely tight. I just think make the moves right away. If the contracts are getting discussed, whereas if you by the way, we start back training and then boom, first week you'll be in that, I'm all right with that, but face value, I can see what it says. But no, back to what Plunge is saying, I agree. This is why we need to get people in, as we say, is bring these guys in, add to the pre-existing quality, and then you're not bargaining with folk. You've not lost a player and having to replace anything. We've got an asset you want, but also as well, I think I'll show you the measure of the players that are in the team already. If you bring in more guys of equal or better quality, the competition's there. Let's say Hatate does want to leave. You'll soon know if he really wants to leave when you get more bodies in the door.
Exactly,
and that's it. Fight for it.
When you're talking about bringing players in there, Stable, we've had our arse felt with this before, and it's because we've been pussyfooting around about it, to be honest. We've sat there and we've waited, and then obviously had to pay over the odds for certain players. Now, I don't want to do that, and it's nice to be started to be linked with players and have price tags kicking about there so that we can go, right, yeah, do you know what? These are players that are going to come in and going to make this squad a little bit better. I'd love to keep Hatate. I think he's still got a bit more to give. I think he's still learning. I just think the guy's a player that can just change a game at the drop of a hat. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but that's their opinion. They're entitled to be wrong. So, like I said, I'm quite happy with these players coming in, and I would like to see business done now. I really would, and so would every Celtic fan. But let's be honest, that's not really how we do business. We wait and we calculate it and we go for the best offer that we can, and that's just the way Celtic do business, and it's frustrating, but we'll get it done.
One position I feel like it's all wingers: Uraseta, Nigrin, Balikwisha. Now Nigrin pretty much looks imminent, right? All but agreed. We've seen that come through. Osmond, all but agreed, that's come through. So that'd be 2. That'd be nice and early. I wouldn't be surprised if they were. Transfer window's open, but first day of pre-season, boom, there you go. There's 2 players. Great start and all that sort of stuff. In terms of Balikwisha, we knew that they were entering talks, discussing personal terms. As soon as you start discussing personal terms, you've got to take that face value as well. I think that's a good place to start. So if that was my opening gambit, my opening 3, I'd be quite happy with how that's progression. The midfield seems like somewhere that's becoming ever so slightly bloated. We're talking about these guys. Nigrin gives you that variation, but it's more of a 10. We've got McGregor, we've got Hatate, obviously, we've got Bernardo, and we've also got McCowan. Now, the names that keep coming round was Demir Tiknaz. Remember, he was at Rio Ave. They could have bought him cheap. They've not. He's been back to Besiktas. Celtic are supposedly interested in this guy, and he's going to be that proper line number 6. Another name that comes round, and I just want to get your opinion. I know it's been loosely thrown, but there's commenters are saying it and they're shouting for it. Is the Miller from Motherwell?
Yeah.
Now, what do you prefer? I know it's like, would you prefer apples or oranges? You know, take your choice. Do you prefer something that is tangible, that you've seen, that you can buy into, Celtic fan, Scottish, has that, it fits that quota, that European quota, not garbage? Or do you prefer to roll the dice like we maybe have done, you could argue, with Engels, and go for the European style, the slightly more combative midfielder?
The Lennon Miller thing for me is a hard one. I know what people are saying and understand what he's going to give you, but you look at the Scottish ones that we've done, right? We brought in like McCown, Dundee player, was doing excellent at Dundee, some amazing performances, their captain, brilliant. He's come into Celtic, and for me, he hasn't really lived up to what I thought he could have promised the club. But then you look at it, if we lose out on Lennon Miller, would it be like losing out on John McGinn? Like we did. I'm not comparing the two players. Obviously, John McGinn would have been a hell of a lot better.
What do you think about McLaughlin saying here? Because Turnbull essentially was the prototype Miller at Motherwell.
Aye, he was. If he turns out to be a player like Turnbull, listen, that'd be absolutely fantastic. The amount of goals that Big David Turnbull gave you is outstanding.
But do you think, I'm not sure if McLaughlin's saying, but what if he turns out like Turnbull? Because I thought Turnbull gave you great output goal-wise, but not a lot elsewhere.
Not a lot anywhere else. Of course, he wasn't like, he didn't give you much more, but you knew you'd get a goal out of him. He was one of the players that basically gave you a bit of hope when you brought him on, or when he was there. Lennon Miller, I think, would be a good asset. I really do. Do you take the gamble on someone who's not proven in the Scottish League? I don't know. Again, it comes down to the weight of the Celtic top. Is Lennon Miller going to live up to that? He's a Celtic fan. He knows what it means. It could be the
I mean, in fairness to Tignaz, if he is going to be one that we're looking at, you know, we're talking about pressure. Playing at Besiktas, 29 appearances for him, a good out. He's played in the European games. He said, he's qualifying for the Champions League. He said Conference League time. He said international appearances at unders and the senior squad. The Turkish league's fanatical. It's up there in terms of just being mental with fans as much as playing at Celtic or Rangers is. So if you want to just look at that, handling pressure, aye.
Again, then it just comes down to your scouting system. Do you go for the tried and tested, somebody that you've seen playing in the SPFL, somebody that you know what he can do? Scotland International ticks the box there. Do you go for somebody with the quota, or do you go outside the box and bring in this other guy with slightly better prospects, should we say?
See, in terms of what Big Dom's saying, I'm throwing this out to you guys in the comments as well as Paddy. Where do we think that, say, Miller might be a gamble? I'm using it as a tangible reference point, whether you like him or not. I know his history and his background, but look at Lewis Ferguson.
Yeah.
Going over there. Now, I thought at the time, despite I don't care what your background is, you want to play for Celtic and you're good enough, I think there's an option there. Lewis Ferguson was a guy that I thought should have been of interest to Celtic at that time, at least a question asked, right?
Yeah.
Probably have said no, but asked the question. You could argue that he was also a project, a roll of the dice and a gamble, but he's went over there and pretty much, cemented his place and is bossing it in Italy. And prior to injury, was getting linked with bigger and better teams in Italy. And then we'll look at other players that have went over for Scotland that have been maybe unfancied to Italy and have excelled.
Aye.
So is there an element of fear with some of the approaches that we've done more recently? I'm thinking Riordan, I'm thinking Scott Allen, etc. Is there more a fear about that, where they're all right, they're the best team for best player on a shit team at such and such a club, that doesn't scale up?
You think back to, I always talk about the Celtic with Dundee United, when we basically went to their squad. We took their keeper, we took Mackay Stephen, we took Nadir Sivci, we took a load of them basically because they were flying at that time, and we just poached their squad. and basically took the best players out of it. Yes, it worked out for some, it didn't really for others, but for me, why can't you bring in both? What's the price? Lennon Miller, 5 million odds, is it?
Well, I mean, if you are to believe, and I say if you are to believe, the chat of down south, 10 million. Now, I'm sorry, no disrespect to Lennon Miller or Murrow. I don't think they're ever getting 10 million. They might get a deal that adds up to 10 million over years with incentives and that, but they're not getting 10 million straight up. It's not happening. I don't see it happening. I think realistically, if Celtic wanted them, you're probably talking about 6 million. I think that's about the going rate for him. But then when we look at Tignaz, he was going to be costing, or could still, if we're interested, that could be in that 8 million pocket right away. I think it's 8 million if you go and make that approach right now when we're in a strong position. That 8 million becomes Engels money once you start to maybe get ready players. You know what I'm saying, Paddy?
Of course it does, and that's what I don't want. I don't want us to be bent over a barrel needing a player in and people knowing that you need that. The young lad was at McCardle that came in as well. I thought he was very, very impressive, like so comfortable on the ball. And I'd like to see a possible space for him as well. I don't want to lose these players. I really don't want to start losing a lot of the youth talent that we've got there as well. Obviously, losing young Daniel Cummings was a bit of a sore one, I thought. So, young guys like McCardle, I'd like to see maybe a place for them in the squad. But again, like you said, Steve, it's a position that we're very, very solid in. You think about it, we play 3 midfielders a game. When you think about it, Callum McGregor's going to be in there unless he's injured. Arne Engels is going to be in there because he's the big £12 million signing. I think there's a need for him to be played there. And it's who plays that other position. Is it going to be Hatate? Is it going to be Bernardo? Is it going to be McCowan? Do you know what I mean? Is it going to be another, basically?
That fascinates me. I threw out on the last show that I done, but I'm a big fan of Bernardo.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking here, what does the future look like for Bernardo? And I know Eddie's injury last season, but I don't know why. Something at the back of my mind makes me think that if we were to get a decent offer for Bernardo for somewhere in Spain or Portugal, the likes that Celtic would maybe entertain it. I don't know why. I just get that feeling that
I think if you look back to when we first signed Bernardo, he was played all the time in Europe. He's more adaptable to the European style of football. Do you know what I mean? He's not really, for me, the FL struggles. He struggles playing against your St Mirrens and your Hearts and your Hibs because they've got basically boys in there that they'll just kick you off the ball if they can't get it from you. And yeah, Bernardo, he's got a wee bit about him. He's quite a stocky wee lad, but I think he's more suited to the European style of football, and that's like getting the ball in and being under that pressure straight away and making the quick decisions. I think he's an incredible talent. He's Portugal's under-21s captain still, isn't he?
The least under-21 going. I don't know how that works, but
I know, but he's still there. He's still going. So I think if we were to offload him, I think he would go, like you say, Steve, probably somewhere in Spain, possibly like that. I think that would be his kind of destination. I'd like to keep him about. I think he gives you more than a few other players that we've got in at the club. But if we to lose him, then if we to lose anybody in there, I would probably say it would be him. Obviously, I'd like to keep Hatate.
I mean, the key thing here is we're talking about, we are saying how many, the question is saying how many do we need? Now, I went out and record the saying I thought a minimum of 5, and that's whilst retaining. We'll still get various things. I saw a post earlier on, and I think it's making me think a wee bit more in terms of with all the winger links potentially. I had said again mid-season, as you'll testify to, that I said regardless of how good Yang might turn out to be, Celtic are going to sign a minimum of 2 wingers, possibly 3. Well, we've been linked with 4, and 2 of them look, Nygren, versatile, yes, but still a winger, and Balakwisha, they look pretty steady as real potential possibilities of happening. And Uraseta, we've revisited that one. Bear in mind, we offered 4.6 million in last January. He said he wasn't quite ready, wanted to develop. He's been on a wee bit more. Sarsborg would want to let him go. Decent enough season again under his belt. I think that's going in the right direction. And folks says, does that mean that Maeda will be used as an option through the middle, and I absolutely think that's definitely. I think that what the manager wants, but it looks off it, is a wee bit more flexibility in his sort of forward lines where guys can be sort of interchanged in, and they're not just one size fits all. I do think we will go for another striker. Yes, Osman's coming in, but that's low down the pecking order. I think he's coming in, and we're saying at this moment in time, just by default, he's third choice, but I actually think he'll probably be like, fourth choice or an option on the bench. I think we still need to get a straight out striker. Who that's going to be remains to be seen. I don't want to tread old ground. The Christegarden thing, that seems to have fallen away a wee bit. Went a wee bit quiet there. There was the El Katashi thing. Nothing really happened with that. So that one's still very much out there. And I think it's great getting linked with all these midfielders. But I think the reality is I want to start seeing us getting linked with defenders, centre half, a other left back, potentially a right back, and a striker. That would be my priority positions. Fill those ones out. The midfielders, for some reason, Celtic have always been great at signing midfielders. With hundreds of midfielders and thin at the back and thin at the front. It's time to even that out, Paddy.
Yeah, I think so, mate. On the talk about strikers and stuff, right? I think fully that Adamida is going to be our number one striker. Now, that might strike fear into a lot of Celtic fans, never mind any fans of any other team. But for me, do you know what? Yeah, he didn't have the best season, but he scored 20 goals. Now, 20 goals in a season where he didn't play well for a striker is pretty decent. And when you look at the amount of minutes that Adamida's played, you can't really argue with it. You look at it and you go, yeah, fair play. Now, you pointed out, yes, a lot of the goals were the third goal in a 3-1 win or something like that when he's come off the bench and scored. But pardon the French, you can only really piss with the cock that you've got. He's been brought on at 2-1 and he scored the goal. If he'd started the game, he'd maybe get the first goal, he'd maybe get the second goal to help us win it. So for me, I think Adamida's got a lot to prove this season. I think he might be the one that Brendan kind of goes with if it doesn't go with Dyson through the middle. Now that for me really frees up. If Nigrin's going to be the one that's coming through the middle as well, or playing, like you say, that kind of number 10.
To jump in, do you see Nigrin as potentially being a Chris Commons type guy, almost like a pseudo striker? And remember how heavily Chris Commons was a winger, right? He wasn't fast.
Yeah,
he was no fast, but he was direct. He was tricky and had a good eye for goal. Now remember, I know that he's soured his reputation a wee bit after leaving Celtic with some of his tinfoil hat crap that he's came away with, but he was on fire. The goal scoring return on him was phenomenal at stages at Celtic, and this could be what Nigrin's going to be. Are we looking at supplementing goals from all over the pitch, or not? We've always had that, but adding more into midfield where the strikers, you must hit 25 goals plus, is that expectancy isn't there anymore?
Well, for me, see, when we first spoke about Dr. Tisdale coming in, Steele, you mentioned what he done with Ollie Watkins. And Ollie Watkins was a left winger, wasn't he? Something like that. He kind of played on the left-hand side. And Tisdale spotted it and said, no, he's not a winger. We're changing him. We're going to make him a striker, blah, 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 blah. Brought him in. Now look at the guy. Probably one of the best in the Premier League for return. Do you know what I mean? He's absolutely banging the goals in. Now, maybe this is one that he spotted. Maybe Nigrin's one of the ones that Tisdale spotted and went, yes, he's playing there. Yes, he's been doing this, but he could be, like you said, a Chris Commons type player. And if he's going to come in and he's going to produce the goods in that kind of position, then that's absolutely fantastic for me.
See, for Celtic to get this right, and it is imperative. We've said it. Celtic need to nail on the signings this season. I would say we need to have at least an 85% hit rate of successes to failures in this transfer window. Of course, if you're only bringing in 4, you want that success rate to be almost 100. But if you're bringing in a body, if you're bringing in quantity, hopefully with quality, as the tagline says, they need to be your standards. You need to be hitting about an 85-90% success rate with these guys. But my question is, Paddy, what does Brendan Rodgers or these potential signings, what does it say? What are we looking for? Because remember, no different managers think different. Ange bought players to fit a system.
Yes.
They were bought specifically to play a certain system. I think we're still slightly confused as to what Celtic's system really is. It's heavy possession-based football. But there's no, for me, it's not bad, but there's no direct thing. Like with Ange, it was quite simple. Quick down the wings, cross balls, attack it in the centre. That was it. It was meat and two veg football. It was so basic, it was unbelievable. Celtic at this moment are heavy possession based. So what are we? We're not clearly not going to buy guys to play a system. So are we looking to buy guys that are flexible? Is that more of the approach?
Yeah, I think that's what it looks like. At a few points this season, we've seen a Brendan Rodgers team. And by that, I mean, if you watch back the Chelsea game pre-season, that was a Brendan Rodgers team. That was possession-based. It was fast. It was counter-attacking. It was rapid. Do you know what I mean? It was keeping the possession, but when you saw that opportunity, bang, you were in. And that's what we remember for the Invincible season under Brendan. That's what I can remember, and that's kind of what I think we're trying to get back to. And the players that we're bringing in, I think we need progression in the Champions League. I think
Tierney's a good starting point for that, by the way. I think you'll get that energy that you're getting, and I actually think it'll bring on Alistair Johnson doing those overlaps and those sort of marauding runs down. I think if we can get that on both sides, that will work. And I do think, again, come back to Tierney, when they see that impact, they see that style that they're doing it, the player on the other side is going to want to replicate it, and they're going to want to emulate it.
Yeah, and then that's where they get caught out. We're going to have players like we spoke about the relationship between Nicholas Kuhn and Alistair Johnson on that right hand side, and at some points they look as if they're totally in sync. It's incredible. Do you know what I mean? Like some of the link up play between the two over this season was absolutely outstanding, and that's something. If we are going to bring in someone else in that position, you don't want to lose that. You don't want to lose that vision that they had between the two of them, and that's something that I'd be quite scared of losing.
Well, that's a good segue in there, because Nicholas Kuhn's been the topic of much discussion throughout the course of the second half of the season. Listen, brilliant first half. I don't need to repeat myself. Potential would have been Player of the Year candidate, so on.
First 4 or 5 months, he was Player of the Year, 100%.
Bit of apparent interest in the January, and then I think fell off the edge of a cliff. Up and down sporadic. We got all this, and it was flash in the pan stuff. He didn't follow through on his conviction. It was very watery, to put it lightly. Chat arising again. Obviously, there was the Brentford talking that. I don't think that'll happen with Frank now moving on to Tottenham. Don't see that. But apparently, Leipzig, who he had won his few really top drawer highlight games. Ironically, he played well against the German teams, played well against Bayern Munich, played well against Leipzig, and then he was kind of just meh against the rest of the teams in Europe, in my opinion. But Leipzig must have liked what they've seen. And the chat is £15 million, again, unsubstantiated, sort of floating out there in the ether. We've said it, commenters have said it, we've brought it up. We want to keep guys in-house. We want to add to it with the quality. If we are getting 2, maybe 3 of these wingers that are mentioned, that would obviously make things again a wee bit bloated. Arguably, we give you more options. Kuhn, yes or no? Is Kuhn a player who is imperative to keep hold of for you? Is he a must keep hold of, or do you think what would rejuvenate Nicholas Kuhn? Because I might be wrong, but I just get the feeling that he's a guy that might have made his mind up. I don't want to have to win guys over to stay.
Yeah. No, exactly. Listen, if you don't want to play for a club like Celtic, then the door's open for you. There's somebody else that will come in there and take that place. Like you said, the head stuff and the kind of mouthing thing, and I don't agree with players doing that. Listen, let your boots do the talking, score your goals and be consistent. For me, that's where he hasn't proved it. For me, he was brilliant in the first part of the season, absolutely banging them in. It was absolutely incredible. Then went off the boil for a wee bit. Yes, the fans got on his back because, do you know what? You've put in 10 absolutely incredible performances and then went off the boil for 3 or 4 games, and people get on Hatate's back for it all the time, and I'm on here trying to defend the poor guy. Yeah. Yes, everybody isn't going to play brilliant every single week.
I mean, it's been McLaughlin says 40+ goal contributions is undoubtedly good.
Yeah,
and
of course it is.
And again, I'm not diminishing that. I'm just saying that it could have been should have been so much more.
No, 100%.
I know that again, that's greed, that's wanting it all, but it was all condensed. It was all front end packed. And I understand what folk are saying. He hadn't played that many games in his time, but the biggest worry for me just was when there was that interest around the January where it's strength of character and mental character, where it clearly affected him. Let's not kid ourselves on, it clearly did. And all I'm saying is if there is genuine interest in him from everywhere else, and he maybe is, for whatever reason, discontent, or maybe he's letting people like ourselves or in the commenters or social media getting to him with the criticisms, then you might need to thicken up your skin a wee bit there. But you just get what I'm saying. I would like to keep an on-fire Nicholas Kuhn in the team. But if he needs convinced for whatever reason, I'm not one for trying to talk guys round.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And if the numbers that you're saying there, 15 million, are getting thrown about, then 15 million is bringing in two-day players that we've already spoke about. It's bringing in Balakisha and Nigrin as well, isn't it?
Do you think Nigrin, Uraseta, Balakisha, for you, are they off the standard? I know it's small. We don't really know too much about them, bare figures, stats, but we can see videos. Yes or no? Equally or better than Kuhn?
I think they can be. Let's face it, Nicholas Kuhn, when he came in his first season, wasn't really that impressive. You were calling him out every week. He looked overweight.
Well, we now know he had an injury, which is changes.
And that's absolutely fine. But when he came on, he come back this season, and like I said before about the friendly games, those friendly games against Man City, against Chelsea, against was it one of the American sides, he was brilliant. It was absolutely unplayable. It was like a brand new player. And everybody's like, oh my God, this guy's going to be incredible going into the season. And he was. But then he just fell off the bus. He was nowhere. And
I am hoping that it is fatigue, as people are saying. I'm hoping that it's
could be
first time playing a lot and it's hard to get up for it. And I know that we all sit here and say you're a professional footballer, you're living every wee guy's dream, every kid's dream that wants to be a professional footballer, put a smile on your cootum, so on and so forth. But yes, at the same time, no matter what vocation you are, what your job is, there will come a point where it becomes a grind and you will be tired. And regardless of how much money you're getting paid or whether you've got an enjoyable job or a dog shit job, there will be points that will grind you. So I can understand that, but I just think that we need to really get him in and back on start. We need to get him back up to scratch and see what he looks like. I want to assess these guys through the pre-season, but it remains to be seen. But again, talking about guys, and I just want to gloss over it, we've got so many guys that are coming back to us, Paddy. How many of these realistically can we get ready? Because we're talking about wanting to bring on these guys, 5-6 players on top of what we've already got. But that squad's going to look a hell of a lot bloated if all these guys come back.
Yeah. And I think we're being linked with people like this is showing you where the changes are going to be made. I think if you're being linked with 4 wingers, I think that kind of basically seals Nicholas Kuhn's fate, because we're not going to sell Jota. We've basically just got him in the door. Diaz Maeda, we hope to God isn't going anywhere. Touch wood, touch anything that you've got. And you look at Yang. I think Brendan really rates Yang, and you can see that with the amount of times that he's brought him on.
Does Yang need loan time though?
I think so. We spoke about that previously. I think he would do incredibly well going out on loan for a year. We've still got him. What's he got? About 3 years left in his contract. So he was one of the ones that was putting a 5-year, wasn't he?
5-year deal, yeah.
5 was still 3 years. Yeah, 5 was a new 3. We're dishing them out like confetti, weren't we? So you look at it, I think Yang's got a hell of a lot to improve on. But I think you can see the ambition there. Now, maybe we just need to have his bird in. Maybe that's what the problem was. Remember when his girlfriend was over and he was playing absolutely outstanding? He had a few absolute worldies. Maybe we just need to fly her in and just keep her here. Maybe that's.
Does that mean whole equals goals?
Goals equals goals. Maybe that's the plan. Yeah, it works for Yang. It's,
Oh well, yeah. Oh well, no. So anyway, listen, we're sort of a wee whistle stop tour of the things, but we were talking with strikers, and I got to gloss over it because I had a wee bit of, as you saw, a wee bit of technical difficulty on the last stream. But the name that surfaced was Ivan Ferguson, or Ivan Ferguson, however you want to say his name, right? Now, I do joke. I'm just being like you. I said we've already got an overpaid big plank of wood for Ireland that scores a lot of goals, right? Now, even Ferguson, yes. Where are you at with this one? Because he's got a heavy contract, right? He's in contract to June 2029. He's Brighton to West Ham. West Ham was a washout, done absolutely nothing, just barely kicked a ball, didn't score a goal. His best season came 2022-23, 34 goals, 16 goals, 5 assists, so on and so forth. Then he kind of season after, 7 goals, 1 assist. He's got Europa League experience, 22 caps for Ireland, so on and so forth, right? This is a guy that undoubtedly would be a loan, a full season loan, and you maybe negotiate a relatively inexpensive by Premier League standards deal to keep him on. Does Ivan Ferguson offer you any versatility over what he did us? Do you think he's a more rounded, polished player, a better version of Adam Idah? And if he is, then what is the point of Adam Idah?
I think he offers something different. Yes, he hasn't played many games for West Ham, but when you look at who they've got up front, Mikel Antonio...
he was on loan at them, but he's now back at Brighton.
Yeah, he's now back there, but I mean, when he was at West Ham, there was Nicholas Füllkrug as well, German international, so they're proper 25, 30, 40 million pound players, and I don't think Ferguson's in that bracket. So now he's going back to Brighton, where they're sitting with João Pedro up front, and you have man Danny Welbeck and things like that, and I don't think he's going to break his way into that squad either. So for me, a loan probably would be a decent option for him, but where does he fit into our squad? We've got Adam Idah, who is doing a decent enough job, in my opinion.
Chris, see if you kick a ball off a fence, it bounces off it, doesn't it?
Aye, exactly. And then they talk about Johnny Kenny. Johnny Kenny, for me, he done it in the Conference League, and you watch some of his games, and we were quite excited about the thought of him coming back. Thought he was going to offer a bit extra, but we haven't really seen that. So for me, I think it is a position that we need to strengthen, because I think Johnny Kenny will be on his way out. I do think, I feel like there's a wee bit of me that feels sorry for him, and it's not because of the Irish connection and the fan and all that, but I just thought he came over, looks like he's trying too hard.
He went back to Ireland, he was a wee bit homesick, which fair play, whatever. I know it's not miles away, but he was homesick. He went back, played well, good European experience. He was a guy that I was hoping would work out for him. Again, when we compare him to Osmond and folk are saying, well, is he any better? I still argue the toss that Osmond playing in PL2 is still a higher standard opposition in terms of the players in those teams will be far better than the vast majority of the guys running about in Ireland. I just do believe that. But I think it's a bit of a strange one. Ferguson, for me, I get what you're saying. He appears on the surface to offer a wee bit something different. I would say he's kind of similar to Idah, but slightly more polished. The stuff that we criticise Idah for. Yes. Touch, control.
The simple stuff.
He's a bit more accomplished in that field.
Yeah.
The hit rate is debatable. He's another guy that maybe hasn't fulfilled his potential, but I also think that he could be, I'm not comparing the two, but a Chris Sutton type situation where he's down in his luck and he needs to reinvent himself. Because when we signed Sutton for Chelsea, he was a laughing stock, let's be honest. Now, of course, Sutton's a far better player to begin with, but I'm just using the example of a guy who's in the wrong team at the wrong time and it's not working for him. That's what I mean with Sutton's situation. I don't mean the quality is comparable before you try to pull me up on that.
Joe Hart was one of the players. He was somebody else that was down on his luck that wasn't really getting
a chance. Sinclair.
Yeah, you could rhyme off loads of these kind of guys. So for me, I think he would be a decent enough option. I think if we can offload Johnny Kenny, then Ferguson would be one to look at. I think it'd be a decent addition, and it's a position that we do need to strengthen. So yeah, listen, it's looking at it. I'm just happy that we're not talking about Vestergaard again. We've been linked to him, we've not been linked to him, we've been linked to him again, and it's just one that keeps coming up all the time. So
I think we need variation. I definitely like the Vestergaard one. If that was something that was going to come in, I like that. I like that because of the consistency of it and revisiting it. I did like that was one reason I did like that. I've been somewhat underwhelmed, if I'm being totally honest, with the striking options. I'm not including Osmond in that, because I think it's unfair to be underwhelmed by a guy who comes with good promise, and he's going to be a lower choice. He's not getting bought as, here's your new striker. It's, here's a guy who's going to be brought into the team and we're wanting to develop, right? And again, that brings up many questions about our own team and our own youth player. I get it. Talk forever about that, but I've been slightly underwhelmed. The boy El Kishati, that went all quiet, but I thought for a punt as a third choicer, him third choice, Osmond fourth choice, I'm cool with that. But whoever this, either number 2 or somebody's going to take over either for the starting, this is the thing that I want to see links becoming soon. And I also think that I'm not against, as I've said before, getting these young guys in. You look at the profile of these guys that we're getting in, they're young, they're at a decent stage of their career, but I've also said it a million times, Paddy, there's places for running bills, there's places for guys who you're maybe only going to get 1-2 seasons out of. Yes, that's a bit stopgap-ish, right? But there's plenty of guys out there that could do it. Now, I'm not saying it, don't shoot me, but folk laughed at the idea of Jamie Vardy for a year. Jamie Vardy scored 40 goals, by the way.
Aye.
He just would, right? He's not a long-term solution. It's lazy, yes, because of the links and all that, but I'm just using as an example. See if you get a guy that you're going to get 2 years out of as a striker that's played at the highest level, and all you're paying him a good wage. I'm all right with that, by the way, because having these guys along will bring up your Idas, your Osmonds, whoever else it might well be, and is under that learning tree. But Celtic need to get, for me, of all the positions, defence is important, very, very important. But a striker, a dependable hang your hat on striker is massive, Paddy.
Yeah, of course it is. And I've seen somebody saying there as well, but McLaughlin saying Maida is going to be the main man up front. And we've seen it for some parts of last season. And he done an incredible job. But towards the latter stages, we've seen him drop back to the wing, obviously, when Jota got the injury. And
it was diminishing returns on the wing.
Yeah, it was so much better, like assists-wise and things like that. He offers you so much on that left wing. And yes, he offers a lot through the middle and he was getting the goals and things, but I still feel like he deserves to be on that wing. Now, if Jota's fit, then I can see Dyson playing through the middle, because you couldn't really be dropping any of them, can you? That frees up the right wing. Who's going to be playing on the right wing? Not even mention guys like James Forrest still in there as well, still doing a job. It's just, it's a tough one. It really is. There's so many positions that we really need to strengthen, and so many players that we've been linked with for these. I think that you're right what you say with Jamie Vardy. I think he would come up here and do an incredible job.
Again, there's been no links. I'm just using as an example. I'm not championing a Jamie Vardy going for folk jump down my throat. All I'm saying is I think that I've said this, what I call running bills, and that could be your number 6. Your number 6 could be a running bill guy, a guy that you're going to get 3 years out of. You're not going to get a sell on him, but what you get out of him is what he provides: experience, learning, passing on, and ability. Yep. That's it. It'll pay for itself. We've had those guys before. Hart, running bill. Sinclair, running bill.
Yeah,
they exist. Just go out and do it. And I think there's plenty of guys out there that fit that bill. What I like is that a lot of the guys that we're looking at are of a good standard, and they don't appear to be lazy. They're not black book signings for Brendan Rodgers, but the right black book signing for Brendan Rodgers, there's still a place for it, Paddy.
Of course there is. And you think back to the Invincible season, we brought in Kolo Toure, and a lot of people sniffed at that, but he brought that experience, he brought that solidity. Do you know what I mean? He might not have been able to shift as quick as anyone else, but the head was there. And having that footballing head, having that mentality, know about where to be at some point. Do you know what I mean? That for me is pivotal. And I think a more experienced player gives you that. So I'd be quite happy bringing in a more experienced player for Adam Ida and young Osmond to learn off of. Yeah. That would be decent enough.
I mean, that's the thing. I get what Chris is saying about the options with striker. I think that we need I still think that we need a bona fide striker. I think that this season is going to be very, very interesting for multiple reasons. Now, we sat here and I felt that, yes, when we didn't have players that we'd cut open and, give you that wee moment of magic at the end to win games when it got a bit sticky. But we are a possession-based team. Celtic have, to an extent, domestically, teams have known how to set up against them, and it's became harder and harder for us. I want Celtic, and hopefully, as I say, with this flexibility, these guys that can move around the pieces, that we maybe see a different approach, a slightly different style, a hybrid of what we've been doing, and a new approach to it. I say that's interesting because when we look over the other side of the town, no matter what you think of them, no matter what you think of Russell Martin, he's a manager that, guess what, he wants to play possession-based football. So if Celtic are already getting troubles with teams knowing how to set up against it, why does he think that coming in and doing the exact same thing that Celtic have been doing for 2 years with lesser quality players is going to, give him the success? So I think that's why Celtic need to be agile. Celtic have the benefit of 2 years of playing that way and seeing how teams set up against them. He's going to come in blind and just try to do it anyway. So that's why I think that we need to get a variation and we need to look for something a bit more direct. I think these guys are giving us a wee bit of creativity and options, but I still think the out-and-out striker, if that's a penalty box striker, then that's fine by me. But we need a striker. For me, that would be top of my wish list. I am all for putting Maeda through the front. I am. But he has had a fantastic season last season. He's been fairly consistent in other seasons, but it's untested, it's unproven that he will carry that on to next season. See, for 2 seasons, last season, the season before, in that bracket of goals and performances, I go, right, I'm happy with that, moving through the middle. But right now, it could be a flash in the pan season at Celtic.
When we spoke about it before, the kind of striker that we were after, you mentioned a hybrid striker, Steve. Somebody that was going to drag players off the ball and somebody that could win the ball in the air, that was going to do the physical stuff. Somebody like Giakoumakis. And that's a player as well that we're re-linked with. All because he got interviewed and he said leaving Celtic was a mistake, basically. So then straight away, journalists jump on it and they're like, oh, Giakoumakis is going to come back to Celtic. He's another one that we're linked with and things like that. And it's been the same. You look at guys like Edward, Kyogo, all of these players are all being linked again because they know it's a position that we need to strengthen. And they know it's that type of player that we're needing. And they're a player that is going to do the runs, is going to run off the ball for the midfielders, for our creative players like Arne Engels and Rio Hatate to make the killer passes. And I don't think Adamida is at that stage yet. He's very solid in there, isn't he? He just he's not making the runs off the ball. He's not getting into the space. I don't think that's the type of striker that he is. And I think that's a part of his game that he really needs to work on.
The pre-season is going to be huge. It's twofold. One, getting the players in is important. But secondly, as I've said before, certain guys that we have been maybe a bit judgmental around, you give them that full pre-season, you get to see them in those pre-season games and you start to get a feel for where they're going to go. Because generally speaking, if a player is having a sticky pre-season, they're not all of a sudden going to just burst into life and be, converted. It can happen, but rarely does it. You normally, as we've seen with Nicholas Kuhn, it gives you an insight and here's what we're going to get this season. And he carried that on. I thought most players last season during the pre-season really carried it on. Again, joke. Lewis Palmer looked shit, and guess what? He was shit. Like, you just knew that was going to happen. So, that's where I'm at. But anyway, we've went on for almost an hour there. And thanks for joining us, Paddy. As it says, there's not really too much beyond that. We've covered the general consensus on the guys that are coming in. And hopefully there's a wee bit of movement. The teams will be coming back soon. And hopefully we get some players out of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm missing football, mate. I tried watching that Club World Cups. What a lot of shite.
Yeah, it's not the same, is it? We miss Celtic. So we just need to keep up the content. We just need to think that the signings are going to come. We're going to be linked to a hell of a lot more before the window closes.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll break it all down, Steve, and I'll come on here and give you my opinion on it, whether people like it or not.
No, we'll be back around. I was interested. We're talking about players wanting to play for Celtic and want to play football. I know he's no longer at the club, but I laughed. Did you see Scott Bain's interview on the news?
No, I've not seen it. What's happened?
Well, he was saying that he was inspired to move and play Falkirk by his wife and his kid because he wants them to actually see him play football. and the past few seasons have been great and all that, but you want to play football. I'm like, right, okay. Just kind of made me laugh a wee bit. Made me laugh a wee bit there because it's like, he's fed up of being a DJ.
I know. I was going to say that we're going to need another DJ in at Celtic Park or somebody else that's going to just take up space in the car park. That's basically what he had done. Listen, fair play to the boy. He's wanted to play football and he's moved on. So I wish him all the best at Falkirk. I really do.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for everybody else who says keep your eyes peeled. We're roughly doing these weekly breakdowns. If anything breaks, we'll pop up. If there's players, I'll jump on. Any of our guys will profile and we'll tell you what we can about them. This is more of the pre-season about you at Bourne. We've got a few things in the back burner we've been working on and getting those out there. So we'll just keep your notifications on. And by the way, as well, say hundreds of stuff for free if you want it. Got these new stickers. Stickers are good, aren't they? Let's check these ones out. Look. Jamesy Forrest, classic. New one here. This one, check it out. Yes, Maeda, Rio, the midfield maverick. All toppers. And if you want any of them, send us a DM. Get DM'd out your nut.
Yeah.
Send me.
Same as well, guys. Listen, as I said at the very start of this tonight, I was in the company of Murdo MacLeod today, and Murdo was telling me that he's still got quite a lot of copies of his book, Murdo. Now, if anybody would like to buy a copy of that and get it personally signed by Murdo, get in contact with us and I can make that happen for you. Absolute gentleman, so humble. Spent over 2 hours with me and my wife today. Just
imagine spending 2 hours with you. It's bad enough spending an hour with you on here.
Exactly, mate. And do you know what? He didn't even whinge once. Only cost me a couple of coffees. Absolutely fantastic. So if you're interested in getting a copy of Murdo's book signed, a cracking present for somebody, any birthdays coming up or anything like that, hit us a wee message and I'll help get it sorted for you.
No worries. Well, thank you to everybody for joining us. We will be out of your hair and we'll be back, as we say, if anything comes out. So until the next time, as always, take care of yourself. And Paddy,
hail trips.
See you later. Bye. Nice one. That was